Okay, it's Monday, September 13th at 7:03. I'm going to call this meeting of the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust Board of Trustees to order. Meetings being conducted via Zoom video conferencing in accordance with the open meeting law. The meeting will be recorded by the town. Anyone else desiring to record the meeting may do so only after notifying the chair and may not interfere with the conduct of the meeting in so doing. So with that out of the way, public comments. Since I don't see any member of the public here.
Can I make a public comment? I don't know
Sure.
where this comment
Yeah.
should go,
Yeah.
but based on the request of the select board for Harry and Mike and I to meet about our proposed purchase, I have reached out to the sellers. They have gotten back and said they'd be happy to meet with us, but would like a little bit of time to close their businesses and to get back to me with some sort of timing and dates. So for Mike and Harry, that's where we are with that. And I have let Ryan know, and he has let the select board know.
Okay, thank you. Any other announcements? Okay. Status reports. The 95 Lawrence Road Task Force Evaluation Committee, if that's a whole string of words is a thing, is continuing to work their way through the three proposals. We have conducted site visits. We've been to 3 properties and done a drive-by on a 4th one. We've had presentations by all 3 responding developers. We're in the process of seeking recommendations. We're still looking for advice on financial evaluation of the proposals. And we don't have a hard timeline to finish this, but I think it would be nice if we could get this done sometime late September, maybe early October latest, so that people can get started actually working on the project. We had a meeting of the Technical Assistance Grant Scoping Committee on August 25th, and I'll talk about that a little later in the agenda, because it is on the agenda. And the only other comment is I left one thing off the agenda, so and that is the issue of how to approach short-term rental tax allocation. So that'll have to wait to another meeting. And I guess when we get to the future meeting dates, we can talk about whether we want to deal with that sort of out of cycle in light of the December special town meeting, or whether it can wait until we have our next meeting. So that's all I have.
I have one other comment. We have addressed the potential of the Inn at Duck Creek as a housing site at different times, and it is now under contract.
Oh,
We'll see where that goes. I don't know anything more than that. I just saw it come up in the multiple listings. So
anybody else on housing news?
I don't
Just
have
for
anything from the housing authority this time.
Just for Sharon's kudos, we had presentations by the 3 developers. 2 of the 3 used our brochure.
I saw that. I did say that. You know, I've
Good.
watched most of 2 out of the first 2, and
Right.
saw my button. I was
Yeah.
pleased, and
That's going to say that. Yes.
and I was thrilled to see that they used the brochure, and that's great.
So
Yeah,
hopefully it's making an impact on others, but at least
Yeah.
it made an impact on them.
you did.
Okay.
Good.
Go ahead. Any other status type things? Nope. Acceptance of online donations to the trust. I know, Gary, I think you had been speaking with Jeff Tash about the website. Is there something we need to do on that?
No, let me give you an update on that. So
Okay.
the 95 Lawrence effort has sort of taken precedence. And so we decided to hold off for a month. But I have met with Jeff Tash, who is more than willing to help us. He does advise us to get a developer to do it. And the issue of taking a credit card donation, many nonprofit organizations have a methodology for doing it. The issue is not the technical ability to do it, but the town's ability to accept such a donation, how to handle
Mhm.
Um,
And is the town still saying they're not able to do that?
it.
I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Gary.
No, I wouldn't say that, Sharon. I would say that, however, that their current focus is on the accounting reconciliation, and it probably is going to wait if it's going to happen at all. But the question is, should we pursue it in the short term? And I don't know, I have a lot to lose by doing it, but
Mhm. And, there are developers out there who know how to do this. I know the town, the folks that do the software behind the beach sticker sales have that capability. Um,
do you know who that is, Harry?
um,
Could you find out
Oh,
and maybe
I think
send
it's Bonsai Software. They did Turos beach stickers also.
Bonsai
Yeah, like the tree.
with Suzanne, have that
Yes,
contact?
she would. Yes, she would.
Is that Danya Mahoto's
I
business?
believe so. Yes.
Okay.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
His name is Danya Mahoto.
Have any idea?
How to reach him?
Or how it's, yes, if you have a contact or a spelling.
Hang on and let me just see.
I can look it up too.
Yeah, my contact with him was like 9 years ago. So
He was my personal computer guy and he was awesome. And I know that he created the systems that were, I guess, being used at the beach, either the beach or the dump. I feel like it was a dump system. He lives in Brewster. His first name is Danya.
Mhm.
His last name is Mahota.
yeah, he did beach sticker sales for Turo and for Wellfleet, I believe.
Yeah. His cell phone is 781-831-2097.
We have to put out like a request for proposals or anything to build a website?
Yes.
I think we probably should. And if Jeff is not someone who's going to be pursuing that work, maybe he would be someone who could help us in drafting a request, drafting
That's a
a
good idea.
procurement document.
Yeah, where we're hung up now, Harry, is the statement of work.
Yeah, okay.
And I did have a conversation with Mia, but I think unfortunately she has since moved on.
Mhm.
So it may be something we'll have to take a stab at.
Mhm.
And maybe we'll put that on, depending upon the timing, for our next meeting.
Mhm.
But it does sound like something that maybe Jeff, since he's not in the running, could help us.
Yes, he offered to help.
Good.
Could I add one other thing on the donation, online donation? Is there anything else on this particular?
I don't have anything, so go ahead.
We had been approached by someone who was willing to give a $50,000 donation to the
Really?
Housing Authority, but they want to do it in Bitcoin. And we haven't been able to figure out any way to do that.
Today, it could be worth anywhere between 25,000 and 75,000. You just don't know.
But that's okay. I mean, whatever it is, it's a substantial donation.
Mhm.
And so whatever the conversion is, at whatever time we chose to do it, but can we, the trust, accept a donation of 50,000, I don't know if 50,000 Bitcoins or $50,000 worth of Bitcoins?
That's the
You know,
latter, I think.
I'm sorry?
I believe it's the latter.
Right, so, it's much like someone buying a stock that's hit a home run. They bought it cheap. If they were to sell it, they'd have, the gains associated with that. And so this is a way to both do something good as well as a way to handle that. It's a very real thing, and they are offering to do it, but we haven't figured out any way to actually accept it. We, the town.
Seeing as how we're not even accepting online donations yet, it seems like a stretch, but I mean, it's what a lovely, generous offer.
Yes.
And I would think we need to figure it out because it likely is not going to be the only person that wants to donate that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to kind of flesh what Gary said out, if you have an appreciated asset and you donate it to a charity, you're allowed to take a deduction for the appreciated value of the asset without actually paying capital gains tax on the gain.
Mhm.
So it is a way to get the benefit of the appreciation without having to settle up with the tax man for that appreciation. So appreciated stock is something I've seen before as donations also.
Has the town ever had that, Harry?
I don't know that the town did, but a Truro Conservation Trust did get some gifts.
If we were a nonprofit, it would be much easier there is actually a methodology that exists today in the Bitcoin world to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But as a town entity, the question is, can we, or is there any path to?
Just don't know.
Yeah, I don't. So I think we're getting close to the point where he's going to say, I'm going to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no.
Well, who would be able to help us with that?
I've asked many people I guess if anyone out there knows any of our group can think of anybody to talk to, I'm happy to talk to them.
I wonder if there's a nonprofit in town that this person would be enough interested in that a small portion of it would go to that nonprofit to accept it and the rest would go into the trust.
That's interesting. Is the Wellfleet Historical Society, is that a nonprofit independent from the town?
I think so.
It is. I don't know if it has its formal 501c3 from the IRS, but it is a separate entity from the town. And it is a nonprofit.
Yeah,
Mhm.
as is SPAT.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned the Wellfleet Fund or the Fleetian. What is the name of it? I'm
The
sorry.
Fleet Fund?
The Fleet Fund, we don't have our 501c3 yet,
Hmm.
but we'd be delighted to do that for you. I did put in a call to the young woman at Siemens Bank, but we haven't had a chance to talk yet. Yeah.
The Conservation Trust is a nonprofit. That's who is the chair of that now?
That Denny O'Connell?
Is that Denny?
But is that independent from the town or is that?
Yeah.
not the town?
Yeah, that's a separate organization.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I believe it's Denny.
I think so.
It always has been.
Okay, well,
Right. If anyone has any thoughts on some methodology or contact, someone might do something like that, I'd be happy to do it. I think this is being measured in days from
Okay.
them moving on.
Gary, I wonder if somebody like Adanya would be able to help with that. I mean, it's a whole different world, but
yeah.
he operates in a different world.
Yep. Mhm. Yeah, and I
Maybe.
do know a couple people that actually own currencies like that. I can ask them also.
It'd be great if you could, Harry, and
Mhm.
I'll give Danny a call.
River Estuary. It looks, I'm on the Conservation Trust website, and it looks like the only way you can give them money is by check or PayPal. Oh, they do have using Network for Good too, which I'm not sure what that is, but
Actually, for what it's worth, PayPal has a Bitcoin section or capability or whatever.
so maybe that would work then.
Yeah. But, this would be in the nature of electronic transfer, no different than if someone were giving from their mutual fund, their charitable mutual fund. Anyway, that's my understanding.
Okay.
All right.
A shame to lose the opportunity.
Mhm.
I think we need to figure things like that out, and we need to kind of figure out how we're going to accept money in general, because it would be just foolhardy to let donations go by the wayside just because we hadn't figured it out.
I agree.
That
Although-
said, I'm not really sure what the next step is that we have to take.
I'm in the same. I'm so far out of the loop in terms of
Mhm.
how you, that kind of thing. I have no idea whatsoever. So, but you hate to let it go by.
Yep.
Well, let's give it a couple of days if people have any
Mhm.
suggestions. I'd say by end of day Wednesday or so, we probably have to let them know we don't have an answer.
So what exactly do we need to figure out?
Well, we need to know what the mechanism is. I don't know of any reason why we can't accept the donation of it.
So I just Googled how to donate Bitcoin to an organization,
Mhm.
and the ads come up first, but the first ad says donate crypto to any charity.
Mhm.
And then, there's a number of different places that say donate crypto to charity, how to donate Bitcoin. There's a website platform called Donate Crypto. And apparently there are nonprofits that are on this platform. You select the nonprofit that you want. So perhaps what we have to figure out is, can we get a nonprofit that is willing to work with us onto a platform to accept?
Or will they treat the town as a nonprofit?
I
Yeah,
think
maybe.
the town just has to be set up to receive Bitcoin. So the town would need a Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency. I guess it's a wallet. I don't know if that's still how it works, but an account that people could transfer funds into. I think typically with cryptocurrencies, like it could be an anonymous donation. So I don't know if that's a problem, but I don't see why it would be. But I think there just needs to be, the town just has to accept Bitcoin, have a mechanism to accept Bitcoin. And then it could be transferred just the way you transfer money from one account to another, like a direct transfer. So I don't know. I don't have any, experience accepting cryptocurrency. I just know that it's not that complicated anymore. And I think actually there are like websites like Coinbase or things like that, where you can just create an account as the town, whoever does that, that funds can be transferred into. It's just like opening a bank account at this point.
Then,
I have wondering whether there's any value in creating a separate entity, which is a nonprofit housing entity that isn't town related, that could accept donations and then forward them on to the town.
What happens right now if people donate money to us? If we're not
501(c)(3).
donations to the trust are tax deductible.
okay,
As we know, we do have a tax ID number that we can give to donors. I will tell you that I did approach Miriam with the idea, and to say that it fell on deaf ears would be a somewhat positive spin. But
filing for our status or the Bitcoin?
the Bitcoin, no, the status is straightforward.
Yeah, the town has accepted gifts in the past, including some substantial ones. The Recreation Department got a $10,000 gift at one point.
Mhm. The library has gotten substantial
Yes.
donations.
Gary, I'm gonna send you a website. I mean, Mike sounds like he's a lot better versed than I am in this, but they're just in glancing at this quickly while we're on the meeting, it seems as if there could be a safety issue. I don't know if that has changed over time or not, and Mike, maybe you can speak to that, but it seems as if they say you should be, if you're a nonprofit or a charity, you should be going through an organization that's familiar with taking the money. Now, maybe as a town, we're better than that, but I'll send you this just so you can review it.
Mhm.
Great, thank you.
Okay. We exhausted this subject for now, or?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm exhausted.
Yes. All right. Can I go back to the Mass Housing Partnership Technical Assistance Grant? We met on August 25th, and I think that the reaction to our mission statement could best be characterized as muted. That it really didn't tell us, didn't really tell people not familiar with us much about what we do. And the suggestion that came out of that meeting was that, to refine the mission statement to really focus on a single word or a single concept. The trust develops affordable housing. The Housing Authority runs affordable housing programs. The local housing partnership does housing education and outreach. And to get rid of the sort of platitudes about affordable housing and how we're all good people because we're doing that and all that stuff, and to just be succinct and say, this is what we do, and to say it as pretty much as directly as possible. And then to do the same thing with goals and strategies. For example, a goal would be to, acquire blank additional affordable units in the next blank years. And a strategy might be to build the financial capacity to support that goal, increase resources by, some measurable amount in some measurable time period. And so she was, am I overstating how, the kind of comments we got back from MHP?
No, I think that's exactly what she was saying. I was wondering if our next work meeting with the CDP, where the people that go to that represent
Mhm.
all the different groups, could try to work it
Mhm.
with their help.
Is that this week or next, or?
Next week?
Just as a quick
22nd.
aside, Elaine,
Mhm.
if you want to add that to the agenda, we probably need to move the time because we scheduled a 95 Lawrence meeting on top of it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to be there next week because I'm in a Dune check. So,
I mean, it is a method of defining ourselves and helping us separate,
mhm.
with the new entity and the two entities that have been in existence. So I think it's important, but it's hard to, with everything else going on, hard to put the minds to it right
Mhm.
now. But we could try, giving it 45 minutes worth of work at that meeting.
Mhm.
Are we talking about refining the goals of the trust or all three entities?
Well, I think the comments apply pretty equally to all three.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I think the kind of overall comment was, these mission statements all essentially say pretty much the same thing. So how is somebody looking on the outside looking in going to know what you do?
Mhm.
Who does what?
I think that's important. I actually had a conversation with a second homeowner who was looking to get involved, perhaps financially. And he was asking me the difference, and I didn't expect the question, and I was kind of like humdada, humdada, humdada.
Yep.
So I think it would be good for us to have a succinct label for what each of our organizations or groups really do or are trying to do.
Mhm.
And I guess related to that was goals should be measurable. If it's to create 5 housing units, you ought to be able to look back and say, we did 6 or 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with strategies. You ought to be able to look at them and say, yeah, we executed that, and as a result, we're in a better position to meet our goal.
Mhm.
So, and I kind of, it almost, without putting too much on it, it almost sounds like they were suggesting that we should really kind of start over on this.
Mhm. I think so.
That's interesting. So since I'm not going to be at that CDP meeting, maybe I'll write up a couple things that I think, Elaine, and send them to you and see if you think, because I'm
Great.
not part of this, the actual process, but I mean, I do feel like I am usually pretty well able to state what the different groups are supposed to be doing. So, I mean, maybe you will disagree with me, but I'll write it out and I'll send it to you.
Great.
That would be wonderful.
Indeed.
So that meeting is not on the 15th, but on the 22nd, is that right?
Yep. Yes. And scheduled for 10:15. We have the task force at 11 that day, but maybe we'll see if they can meet a little earlier. Give it a little more time. Because when we were kind of wrangling with our brochure, we finally kind of honed it at one of those meetings and, got the basic words and things. And I thought that was effective. So maybe we can do the same thing with this.
It is useful, I think.
And that's at 10:15. Let me just make sure that's on my calendar. Okay.
Yeah, we talked about things like, should we say raise $1 million in the first year, or try to raise $2 million in 5 years? That's specific for
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Raising how?
Well, let me just go back over my notes here. For example, overall goal, how many units and of what mix? Try to assign a cost to the goal. Second goal is to develop the financial resources necessary to support the housing development goal. And then in terms of strategies, where to get the resources, in terms of, looking for donations, looking for tax revenue sources. For example, the short-term rental tax, for example. So they really were pretty specific. I have notes that say, for example, 1 million in the next 3 years.
Are those goals for the trust?
Yeah.
Okay.
And for the housing authority, centered around programs.
Yep.
The rental support programs, the buy down, stuff like that. And for the LHP, would be centered around education and outreach, advocacy and education.
Part of the LHP's charge on the town website is also writing zoning bylaws favorable to the development of affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
We redid those objectives, and we had 4, if you recall, Sharon, and that was still on there, the bylaw.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to ask one question that just prompted me when the CDP discussion. We received the list of donors from the Housing Angels, electronic donors.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say, for the sake of argument, I have 50 names and email addresses.
Great.
And so one is to send a thank you, and can we get CDP to help us with that? So I'd like to get back to that question. But the other question really turns into fundraising and how do we build our database,
Mm-hmm.
which is really key to successful fundraising. And whose job is that?
So, Gary, I did have a coffee meeting with the woman who bought the 2 buttons and, works for Mayo Clinic. And I mean, she's very willing to be helpful. I'm just not sure how to channel her, but I hate to, it's like the Bitcoin. I kind of hate to let the opportunity go by.
Right. It just strikes me that we collectively in housing would do well to develop a database.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, a database is not a really complicated subject. There are, I did a database for the local comprehensive plan that took all 500 comments that they got and put it in a searchable text database for them. I don't know that they looked at it very much, but I put it online and told them where to find it and how to use it.
That's impressive, Harry.
And I still have it. I mean, it's sitting in a virtual machine in my basement, but that's not a terrifically difficult thing to do. And I'm sure anybody who develops websites can do the front end, and the back end is, it's a
Right.
database. It's like a contact list.
But who gets that started for us, and who maintains it for us, and where do we get the names for it?
Maybe that is expanded discussion with regard to the website. Is that it's both website Would that be a similar task, Gary?
Yeah, I think it would be. And it kind of leads to another question in terms of what kind of administrative support do we need to do all these things?
Mhm.
Right now, we're kind of operating on a shoestring. I'm running meetings and taking minutes at the same time. We don't have any administrative help to speak of. Um,
Can
it's
we use
almost-
any of our funds to,
it's not clear whether we have the ability to spend any of the donations we have either.
Well, technically, we don't actually have them.
Yeah, and so, it's sort of, how do we do this? All of the things we talk about, not just this, but how do we do these things, without the ability to spend money, whether it's on staff or buying shiny things to sell or, whatever it is.
I don't get the sense that any of the donations that we got, like at the Housing Angels or any of that had strings attached.
No, but getting our hands on them so that we can spend them if we have to just doesn't seem to have happened yet.
They're not in our account.
It does seem to me that, until we start actually, once we start actually, actually implementing projects and having substantial amounts of funding, that we're going to need some sort of administrative assistance. Whether it's a secretary or it depends. How big is the fundraising division of this trust going to be? I mean, fundraisings, is that something that we can get people to volunteer to do? Is it something that somebody whose role on the trust would be sort of focused on just fundraising and networking that? But it does seem that when you start talking about, 1 million, 1.5 million, or whatever we wind up getting from short-term rental tax coming in, that there's substantial amounts of money there. The ability to then implement kind of scaled up projects to correspond with that kind of money, that we'll have to have some sort of process and determination of who's doing what or who can do what, and whether we need some type of administrative assistant that, and I don't know if the trust just hire someone and fundraise separately, or because we're a town entity, do people have the expectation that their donations or that their short-term rental tax money is going just towards actual projects and not the cost to implement them? I don't know.
And I guess, we adopted a budget last June, so the people who work for the town are all getting paid. There seems to be a mechanism for using those funds that were appropriated at town meeting. I'm just not sure why the trust is any different in that respect. And, maybe that's a question that I need to ask the town administrator, if he can perhaps change the priorities so that some of these funds that we should have access to and have been authorized to have access to since really almost a year ago, last September, that we can actually have access to them. I'm not, I don't have a specific thing I want to spend money on right now, but, if this is going to, if we're going to solve a $1 million problem, we're not going to do it based on, a box full of paper clips and Post-it notes in my office.
So, I mean, are you saying that the money that was donated, and I know it's a drop in the bucket, like by the Housing Angels campaign so far, just as an example, we don't have access to that?
Apparently not.
Well,
Yeah.
well, the housing authority should, right? Is it in the old trust?
In theory, it's an interesting question because we solicited the donations in the name of the trust.
Mm-hmm.
So not, well, whether the old trust or the new trust becomes a discussion, but as I understand it, Elaine, and I've asked this question a couple of times to both Lisa Sauvé and Miriam, that the money, all of the money of our donations, which today, this year, today, exceed $100,000.
Hmm.
So it's not nothing.
Right.
Are in the fund that was the quote unquote old trust. And they're still waiting to transfer it to an account to be set up for the new trust.
Why are new monies that are coming in still going to the old trust? And why hasn't that account been set up yet?
There hasn't been an explanation that makes sense to me.
Okay. I mean, I understand that, we're in a little bit of a, unknown territory about auditing the old money and getting that out, but I feel like we're just making the situation worse by having more of our money dump into that pot. But it sounds like we don't have control over it.
Not apparently yet.
So we can't set up our own account.
Correct.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know to what extent we're required to use the town's accounting support to maintain our own finances. I think arguably, we could appoint our own treasurer and hire our own accountant and have our own banker, and we'd be subject to an obligation to be audited annually. I just don't know, but it does seem like something needs to happen different from what's happened up to now, because I feel like we've done wonderful things in terms of fundraising, and we have wonderful programs, but we're very hampered in our ability to actually execute on anything.
Mm-hmm.
Harry,
Yep.
as a practical matter, the warrant is going to close for the December 4th meeting. When will it close?
I don't know. I know
End of
there is
October. Mike, do you have any sense of that?
Probably sometime around mid-October.
So my
No,
suggestion,
Well, it'll be about 6 weeks, right?
yeah,
6 weeks prior to town meeting. So
my suggestion is after the warrant closes, that we make some push to reconcile the trust accounting. And then we can make some determination as to what we want to do going forward. But I think the first part of it we have to get our hands around the correct
Yeah.
accounting.
I'll inquire with Charlie tomorrow about the status of that, because it's likely that they're just so bogged down.
Exactly. I'm not
solve
blaming them.
stuff that they just haven't gotten to this yet.
Right.
And it doesn't seem like it's a big project, and I'll sort of put a bug in Charlie's ear about the importance of it, and maybe it's something that could happen sooner than later.
So,
I just don't know.
right. So, but even if it was a month from now,
Yeah. Well, I'll talk to Charlie tomorrow. I'll make
Okay.
a point to ask him about it.
if you're actually talking to him, Mike, could you just float the Bitcoin question and see?
Yeah,
I haven't actually talked to him. I did talk to everybody but him.
Who knows? Maybe he has a lot of
Maybe he
Bitcoin.
has some
He
knowledge.
knows a lot about it.
Right.
Wouldn't that be classic?
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Like Ryan Curley may have his arms around the Bitcoin.
Yeah.
question.
Oh, that would be good.
I'm not sure. I've thought about it. I've like almost bought Bitcoin several times and then thought that's just crazy and not done it. And then it just keeps going up. So who
So
knows?
to get back to what we're talking about with the money, it sounds like we have kind of more than one situation. One is we need an account. Two is we need to get our financials figured out. But then three is what do we want to do with the money? I mean, we could talk right now about, do we want to hire an administrative assistant, or how do we plan to move, some of these administrative things going forward? Because we don't need to have the money to decide what we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, there certainly are some tasks that, for example, hiring somebody to deal with the website and set up a payment system through the website. I mean, that's something that would be, that we could do. Do we hire somebody to do minutes? And again,
Harry, are you
I mean-
suggesting that we should?
well, I frankly, I don't mind doing
volunteer.
it. I don't mind doing it, but it takes about an hour and a half to do an hour's worth of minutes.
Yeah,
Right, right.
So a 3-hour
I know.
meeting.
For,
tends to
It would
be-
for,
take me 3 hours to do that, but so I'm so glad you're doing it.
for our Habitat board meetings, we've always had a volunteer do our minutes. I mean, maybe we could get a volunteer.
Mhm.
Well, many committees have a volunteer on their committee that volunteers to
Yeah.
be the clerk.
Mhm.
And we're very
That's
But
right.
we
fortunate.
thought it was Harry.
Harry is the volunteer.
Well, but he's
maybe
doing
somebody
double
else,
duty.
maybe
He's
somebody
doing
else
double
to be the
duty.
chair and I'll be the clerk.
If you offered to do that, you might have a taker.
Yeah,
Well, we're kind of off the reservation here just a bit, but
just for a moment, can we stay on this issue of the financial issues that we're facing right
Yep.
now with everything not being decided, so to speak? Would it make sense to reach out to any other towns or housing trusts that already exist to find out how they manage that relationship with the town?
yes. Makes a
And
lot of
also
sense.
maybe to see if they've accepted Bitcoin.
Right,
And
exactly.
that might be an angle.
So what do we know? Which towns we might make sense to approach?
I think Brewster is pretty advanced in their housing authority and world.
Mhm.
Town.
Yep,
Cambridge.
yep.
What did you say, Elaine?
Cambridge.
Cambridge.
Yeah,
Cambridge.
of course. I mean, these are some of the things I thought we would find out through MHP as we were doing this, that they might have a resource that would, I feel like they're trying to pull it out of us as opposed to feeding us
Mhm.
some helpful information.
They just told us to rewrite our mission statement.
Yeah, so maybe we have
Right.
to ask a little more assistance through them.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. It's supposed to be technical assistance, right?
I mean, I got the feeling from them that fundraising is not a big thing from most housing trusts. I
Mhm.
thought she was surprised to hear that we were doing that, so.
So they're
Hmm.
getting all their money from tax revenues or
Potentially.
where?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
maybe there's another organization fundraising for affordable housing and the money goes into the trust or something like that. They're not actually the fundraising wing.
That could be.
It does seem like that kind of structure could make sense to have another organization fundraising for affordable housing trust. But I've always thought, with something like this, the ability to, like, if you have to hire someone that is a good fundraiser, they're worth their weight in, advocacy fundraising to bring more money back into the organization than we're spending on that person.
Of
I
course.
just don't know the logistics and what we're allowed to do as a municipal organization.
Yeah, but I think that Jim's idea of trusts that have maybe been in operation for a while is a good idea.
Mhm.
And we could ask Shelley for some examples.
Right.
You did a lot of work on the next two items too, Harry. I think anxious to get into them.
Okay, yeah. Okay, well, it's 90 Freeman Ave. I took the RFP for the state highway property and went through it and tried to customize it for 90 Freeman Ave. There is still some language in there that probably needs to be rooted out because the state highway one, I think, contemplated potentially more than one dwelling unit. And I think 90 Freeman Ave is a little over half an acre. So it's probably 2 bedrooms, maybe 3 with an IA system. I don't know. So, if I'm going to do more on this, might go back and limit it to one single family residence and root out that language about as many as you can get on the property. The other thing is I didn't have any of the attachments that were referenced in it in terms of, a regulatory agreement, land disposition agreement, all of that stuff. And I don't know where to get that stuff just yet. But the current draft, and I think also in looking at the current draft, I think I fixed the page numbers and stuff too. But so there it is for whatever we want to take as the next step with it.
I don't think we had anywhere near the attachments we had with 95 Lawrence Road. I'm just trying to think of like the land disposition agreement and stuff that was worked on with Habitat for 2082. I don't recall there was an example in the attachments, Harry?
No, I didn't get any of the attachments. I just had the body of the RFP. So things like land disposition agreement, proposed deed rider, that the site information, the disclosure of beneficial interest, the tax compliance, the non-collusion. I can do all those. Those are all standard procurement documents. The town meeting vote, I can find that somewhere. It's more the property specific attachments. Do we have a land disposition agreement that goes with this? I assume we do, and I assume we have one. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, Harry, the LDA for 95 Lawrence is different because it's a 99-year lease. The
Yeah.
LDA we're talking about here is the same as the one for Old Kings Highway, because it is the transfer of land. So if we look at Old Kings Highway, we should have both. The LDA we can use, and I believe the deed rider is the standard DHCD deed rider, which is in that attachment.
Okay, so who has those documents? Is that something that Becky
Elaine.
Slick has, or?
Elaine, I think you have them. No?
Old Kings Highway?
Old Kings Highway, yeah.
For Old Kings Highway or for Durkee? Is it the same as what we did for Durkee?
Durkee is a transfer of land and the same deed rider, so we could look for those attachments.
Yeah.
We could ask Rebecca whether she has them in her files. Rebecca Slick.
Yep.
Do you want to do that, Harry, or do I?
Yeah,
Not?
I can certainly do that.
They have to, they were by, I can't think of his name now, but the two previous assistant town administrators.
Mike Travato and
Right.
before him,
Before him.
Brian Carlson.
Brian did it before Brian. But
Before.
Tim King, that was
yeah,
Tim King. That was,
King, right? Yeah.
that
well,
was,
who did Old Kings
Brian-
Highway? Was it
Joe
Brian?
was in between. Joe did it for a little while, Joe Powers.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right.
I think
Right.
Tim King did Old Kings Highway.
So if we could look under that information, we should be able to find it.
Yeah. I mean, those documents should still exist.
Exactly.
I can speak with Rebecca Slick about that.
Well,
The
Habitat
person,
should have those.
I can't remember the person's name for Durkee, but he was young-ish and thin. And I can
Right.
remember Elaine and he and
Brian,
I.
That's
Brian
Brian
Carlson.
Carlson.
Okay. And that's who that was the person who put that together.
Right.
Mhm. Well, I'll look around too. and see.
Okay.
Was
So I have
there
a little
a
bit,
list, was there a list of attachments in the RFP, Harry?
yes, there was. And I think that the ones that are significant are regulatory agreement if we need one, land disposition agreement, and deed rider.
Okay,
Everything else I think I can assemble.
okay.
I'm sure if we found either of those full RFPs,
Mm-hmm,
we would have those documents in them.
mm-hmm.
So this is the same process we would use if Habitat were to say want to
Yep.
build something on. So this could potentially wind up in Habitat, but it'd be just anyone open to any proposal for these
Yep.
things. Okay. I wasn't sure. Thank you.
Harry, just as an FYI,
Yep.
2 building inspectors ago, there was discussion that land was pre-existing, non-conforming, and therefore eligible for 3 bedrooms as opposed to 2. I don't know how accurate that is.
There's no such thing as pre-existing non-conforming from a public health standpoint. It's pre-existing non-conforming from a zoning standpoint. It's less than, 30,000 square feet, but it's still buildable because it's, an isolated pre-existing lot. So it's a zoning concept. It's not a public health concept.
Mhm. We do have drawings from, who was the LaJoy?
Philco, I believe,
Dave
yeah.
LaJoy.
Dave LaJoy, Philco.
Yeah, I have copies of those.
Mhm. Okay, well, I will do some more work on this.
You're
And-
totally right about one house.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought I might be, but I wanted to ask just to be sure. I also sent you a draft RFP to acquire land for housing. That's the next item. And actually where that came from was the property we visited in Chatham had actually been acquired by the town of Chatham through that process.
Mhm.
And they had another RFP out for another piece of land. And I noticed that on the very last day, the day responses were due.
Mhm.
So I was able to find the person in Chatham's administrative offices who managed that process. And she was kind enough to immediately send me their document. So I had kind of worked through that to generate the document I generated. And so I think that, again, that's in pretty good shape, actually, because there really wasn't much to do with it except change the references from Chatham to Wellfleet and the address for Chatham Town Hall to Wellfleet Town Hall and change a couple names. Excuse me. So, but I think that needs to be part of a framework where we're, if we decide to issue it, we have to be ready to do something with the responses when they come in.
Mhm.
So we have to be able to gear up a process that's very similar, excuse me, to what we're doing with 95 Lawrence Road, although, probably on a much smaller, much less complicated scope.
Hopefully.
But still, we'll get proposals, and the way that's drafted, those proposals could be an offer to sell property to the town. It could also be an offer to lease the property to the town for long-term use, or even to donate the property.
Mhm.
So, you just don't know what you're going to get, if anything.
Mhm.
And so if we do decide to proceed with that, that would be something that we could send out to the other property owners whose property has come on our radar up to now,
Right.
to specifically invite them. But so I guess the question is, where do we go with that next? I think the document is fairly finished, but what we're going to do with it is the open question.
Mhm.
I mean, do we have to have line of sight to the funding?
Not necessarily, but if the funding is going to be a town meeting vote, that's, if we issue this thing in July and we don't have a town meeting vote until, the following April or May, seems like it's kind of a tough ask to ask somebody to submit a proposal and wait a year.
Mhm.
Are we still talking about Freeman Road?
No. Freeman
I got-
Road, we have the land. We're just looking to see
That's what I
what
thought.
that process to say, will you build a house on this for us?
Yeah, okay.
The second one is, do you have some land you want to make available to us on some terms acceptable to
Okay.
do housing? So
Okay.
it's not to actually develop the housing, but it's to acquire the property. And then
Right.
presumably the next step would be soliciting a developer, whether it's for a single family home on a small lot or whether it's for, 8 homes on 5 acres.
Yep, okay.
And I suppose one thing I could do is speak to the person in Chatham to ask how they handle, executing on the proposals once they get one that they like.
Mhm. I know that Chatham's was just due August 31st. Did she say whether they had gotten any responses?
No, I talked to her before the
she-
responses were due. It was the same day, and I just emailed her. I didn't actually speak with her.
Mhm. But they must have kind of thought about these questions
Yeah.
before they put it out. So it would be kind of interesting what the preparation and
Mhm.
what they felt they needed to do, because
Mhm. I can certainly give her a call.
Well, just for
Yeah.
the sake of argument, if we are thinking that this is going to be a warrant item on a spring town meeting, so we'd want to time it such that whatever offers we had, we could turn into a request for funding by, for the sake of argument, the end of February.
Yeah, because, typically if town meeting happens in late April, typically
Right.
that's buttoned up in early March.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, in
So
terms of working the time frame backward, the timetable backwards.
So you probably want to issue this with, people, giving them 60 or 90 days to respond to it.
Maybe it's after the first of the year or right around the first of the year with a
Yeah.
60-day response.
Mhm.
And we can be straightforward and say that the anticipation is, if we have an acceptable offer, is to seek funding at town meeting and in the spring of 2022.
Mhm.
I mean, it's also a reason to try to build up our trust fund so that we don't always have to go to town meeting to acquire some of these potential properties.
It's a reason to make sure that we have the fund, actually have the funds in the trust fund.
Yeah, if between the donations and the old housing trust and the money from this last town meeting, there should be around $800,000 there. And, if there's an opportunity to buy, several acres of land within that budget, maybe we want to be in a position to act on that. Gary?
We've already committed 210,000 to the, so you have to size your number
buy
down by the 200,000, yeah,
Yeah, to the buy down program, yes.
right. But anyway, be that as it may, we also have the short-term rental tax. If we make a request, does anyone have any, Mike, do you know about a guesstimate as to what the short-term rental tax was the last quarter or this current quarter?
No, I don't know what it is yet. I mean, I can tell you everything was booked. So it's probably,
How much was it the last quarter?
well, I know last year,
Yeah.
we, I think, came in at around 700,000.
Right, a substantial amount, right?
Yeah, and my guess is this year probably more, because I
Mhm.
think rental prices were higher.
Mhm,
They were rented earlier in the season,
mhm.
and later. They're still, I mean, I couldn't turn left today out of my road, so
Mhm.
it's Monday, so I'm not really sure how long we'll be booked like this, but I think we can estimate that it will be at least 700,000 this year in receipts, probably more than that. And then we just increased the rate for next year. So,
Yep.
substantial, like we can do stuff if we have access to funds like that.
Can we, I know we put off requesting a certain percentage of that go to housing. Are we prepared to do that at December's town meeting?
I thought that I had
You did.
added this to the agenda, and I don't see
Oh.
it.
So
Sorry, okay.
you sent a draft of a request to Charlie.
I sent to all of you 2 draft memos. One was to Charlie asking about audit support, and the second one was a draft to Ryan Curley asking the select board to move on adopting a policy on allocating these funds. I neglected to put those on the agenda, so we really
Okay.
can't
Can't-
talk
that's-
about it. So I would ask the question as to whether you guys might be willing to spend a half an hour on a meeting just to deal with those 2 issues outside of our normal pattern of meetings. Because that's just, but for the chair's failure to get them on the agenda, we'd be talking about them tonight.
Maybe fit into strategic plan for the trust.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch that, Mike.
I was just saying that it kind of would fit into strategic plan for the trust.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to talk about that under that agenda item. I know we've moved beyond that, but maybe that's a stretch. I don't mind meeting again.
And we did something just to talk about those 2 items.
Sure.
We could do it in a half an hour and be done.
Mhm.
Do
Harry,
you
if I need-
promise?
Yes.
if I need to change my email contact, should I just do that in a separate email to you?
Yeah, because
Because I'm no longer receiving emails at Verizon, so I need to
Oh.
like. Need to,
please
Okay.
do. I'll change my, I
Okay.
have a group email
okay, sorry.
contact there, so yes.
Harry, do you want to propose a date at this time?
You want to do it next Monday? Is that too soon?
No,
Well, I'm gonna be out in the dunes.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Activity, but, I mean, I'm trying not to, I'm trying to like use it as sort of a Zen time.
Yes.
And no meeting,
Uh,
no meetings in the
But-
dune.
I don't know,
Friday?
I don't know that I need to be involved in this particular meeting, so that's okay.
Do something this Friday afternoon. I can post
I could
this
do
on
that.
Wednesday.
I can do that, but I don't want to,
That works for me.
Just looking
Yeah.
at the tide chart here.
Hmm.
Friday.
Harry, I won't be back until, I'd say 3:30 at the earliest.
I was going to suggest either 4 or 7, depending on people's availability.
Not 7.
I'm not
Harry.
Yeah. No,
I mean, come on.
I'm not available on Friday afternoon.
Okay.
but you know, like, again, I don't have to be there. We don't
Oh.
all have to be present for every meeting.
I wouldn't be able to make it until 6 PM on Friday.
What about Monday, the 20th at 7?
What about Monday, Mike?
Monday. I have an evening tide. That I may be able to make it. I may not. I can always zoom in on my phone if I'm not at home. So
How about an earlier in the day meeting, if it's a half hour?
2,
it was
3,
like
4 o'clock?
midday,
Huh?
I could. But the tide's at 6, so I'm pretty much occupied from like 3:30 until sunset.
How about noon?
Yeah, that would be fine.
I can do that.
What day are you talking?
The
Monday.
20th.
20th.
Yeah, midday on Monday I can do.
For just a half hour, Mike.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine. Yeah, that's
As long as
fine.
we're doing it, can we do it in the morning?
Sure.
So we're not tying up a half a day?
Yeah,
If we can do it, can we do it at like 9 a.m.?
Yeah.
I can do that.
That would be
Yes.
best.
Okay,
I'll let you know if I'm there or not.
Yeah,
9
you-
a.m.'s 9 a.m.'s perfect.
But
Okay.
Sharon, you also know what we're going to talk about because the drafts have already been sent out. So if you had something you wanted included, you could always send
can
those
always-
notes in.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. As long as
just-
it's just you, it's not a chain deliberation. It's not an open meeting law violation. It's
So
when you
Harry,
get.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
The agenda is to go over the short-term rental tax request. And is it also, what else did you want to?
The other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to send a memo to Charlie asking that we be included in the town's audit, so we don't have to do a separate one, since there's nothing to audit.
So
There are
basically,
two
the two
memos.
things you sent out.
Yeah. Yep,
Fine.
okay. Sharon, is there anything we need to talk about on accessory dwellings at this point?
no, I mean, there's a lot of confusion and, you know, I have to say I've been kind of sucked into another project, so I haven't really been focusing on it the way that I might have hoped to. So, I mean, right now, I mean, and the other thing is that right now, because we don't have a building inspector, or it's kind of, I don't know, maybe we have somebody who's like an interim or something that someone told me today,
We do now, Victor Staley.
but he's
Really?
interim, right? So he's just really putting out fires. He's not necessarily,
There's
The
a
per-
backlog. There's a backlog right now. so-
yeah. And no, I'm aware of that. And I don't think that he's the person that I really need to be connecting with in terms of long range thinking. Because he's like, so I'm hoping that we'll get an actual building inspector, and then we can move forward with a guide and things like that. But right now, I don't think we're there.
Okay. next meeting, next regular meeting. I would go into,
October 4th.
okay, we can do that. The 4th or the 18th, I think Monday, the 11th is a holiday for either Columbus or Indigenous people, depending on, you know. who
My
you got.
daughter's getting married on the 9th, so
Oh,
the
okay.
18th works well for me,
Huh?
but I could do the 4th.
Do we have to do anything on the 4th? I mean, if we don't have anything to discuss because we had this little half hour, Judy.
No, we don't have to do anything on the 4th. Most of these projects are kind of long-term things. Gary?
If we're going to actually issue the RFP for land, we should probably finalize that on the 4th with a goal towards issuing it within the next 2 weeks.
Mhm.
Are you talking about Freeman Ave, Gary?
No, I was actually talking about the land acquisition, if we're going to finalize that, but you're right about Freeman Ave too. Yeah, we can put that on the agenda and see.
Yep. So on the 4th, we do our normal 7 o'clock meeting. Is that okay? How does that fit with you, Mike?
You're muted, Mike.
What time is everyone wanting to meet?
On the 4th, we were talking about 7 PM again. I just don't know how that works for you.
That works fine for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Sunset's starting to get before 7 anyways, so
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. And,
Right.
and then, at a certain point, we can move the meetings back to 6 once it's dark
Mm-hmm.
earlier.
Okay. Okay, the only other thing I have is minutes. And we have the minutes of August
16th.
16th, I think it would be. And so we have the open session minutes. And so I'd ask first whether there are any additions, corrections to those.
I thought they were fine.
Fine.
To me.
Okay, so let's have a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Second,
Kathleen, Elaine, and we'll do a quick roll call vote. Kathleen,
Aye.
Sharon, Elaine,
aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Mike.
These are minutes that I was not here.
Okay,
Is that,
Jim,
Yes.
You were not
Aye.
here.
and the chair
Aye,
votes
Harry.
6 in favor, none opposed, and that's an abstention, Mike?
yeah,
Okay. Okay, so those are approved. The executive session minutes, there appear to be 2 ways to do executive session minutes. One of them is to actually go through what we just did in an executive session. The other one is if you can tell me that none of you have objections, we can approve them in an open session without objection. So are there
For
any,
me,
no corrections?
No,
None.
Okay. Okay, so let's just take a motion to approve them as well, since we don't have to discuss them.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Okay, so we get Gary, second by Jim, was that?
Jim, right?
Okay, all in favor, Kathleen,
aye.
Sharon,
aye.
Elaine,
aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Mike,
abstain.
Jim,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye, so 6 in favor, none opposed, 1 abstain. I'll get those posted. And I think that's it for tonight. So a motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Kathleen, second,
Second,
Mike. Okay, all in favor, Kathleen,
Aye.
Sharon,
I.
Lane,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye,
Mike, I'm sorry,
Aye.
Gary,
aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That's 7 in favor, none opposed. It is 8:23 PM and we are adjourned. We'll see you very briefly next Monday and then our regular meeting on the October 4th.
That's a
Okay.
Thanks,
record.
everybody. Thanks, everybody. Well,
Thank
next
you.
Monday will be a record, an even shorter record.
Yes.
Thank you, Harry.
Good night,
All right.
all.
Thank you,
Aye.
everybody.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.